In the 1980s, Hollywood was booming. Studios were gambling bigger than ever. Special effects were evolving, directors were pushing boundaries, and audiences were hungry for the next big blockbuster. But for every success like Ghostbusters or Back to the Future, there were films that aimed high and crashed even higher. Today, we're looking at 4 movies from the 80s that were expected to hit big, but instead became legends for the wrong reasons. Flops, misunderstood, mishandled, or ahead of their time. They later became classics. John Carpenter's The Thing is now considered one of the greatest horror films ever made. A perfect storm of paranoia, practical effects, and icy isolation. But in 1982, audiences weren't ready for it. Released just weeks after Spielberg's E.T. movie, audiences were in the mood for something warm and hopeful. Instead, The Thing delivered an alien that morphed, ripped apart, and reshaped itself into pure nightmare fuel. Critics didn't hold back. They called it cold, repulsive, and pointless. Moviegoers avoided it, and Universal quickly stamped it as a financial failure. Carpenter was crushed. The failure was so severe, he actually lost his next studio directing job. But with time, people realized how groundbreaking it truly was. Today, The Thing is a cult titan, proving that not all flops stay flops forever. Next is a film backed by George Lucas himself. Howard the Duck was supposed to be quirky, fun, and a new kind of comic book adventure. But it was a talking duck from outer space, with animatronics that didn't blink right, humor that didn't land, and a tone nobody could quite define. Was it for kids? Was it for adults? No one knew. The movie opened to confusion and mockery. It bombed so hard that Lucas, according to reports, had to sell part of his company just to keep things afloat financially. And yet today, the film has a small cult following of fans who love it for its strangeness. It's a reminder that sometimes Hollywood takes risks that audiences just aren't ready for. If you've ever seen a Terry Gilliam film, you know his imagination is both a blessing and a curse, and nowhere is that clearer than in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. This film was overflowing with wonder. Sets that rose like mythic monuments, imagery that drifted between dream and delirium, practical effects shaped with almost impossible ambition, and a story that unfolded like a fable, written in the margins of a burning fairy tale. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart. The production went massively over budget, filming dragged on. There were lawsuits, studio politics, and endless creative battles. By the time the movie was finished, the budget had doubled, and Sony barely bothered to market it. The result, a visual masterpiece that almost no one saw. Gilliam always joked that the film was cursed. But today, it's appreciated as one of his most ambitious works. A flop that deserved better. And then there's Ishtar, possibly the most infamous flop of the decade. The name itself became a punchline. Starring Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman, 2 of Hollywood's biggest actors, Ishtar was supposed to be a comedic epic, but the production became a storm of problems. Over-budget locations in the desert, constant rewrites, and reports of chaos behind the scenes. The media was ready to shred it, long before the movie even released. And when it finally hit theaters, critics tore it apart. Audiences avoided it, and Ishtar became shorthand for Hollywood disaster. But here's the real surprise. Today, many critics argue it never deserved the hate. They see it as a flawed but bold experiment, a comedy tangled in studio chaos that overshadowed what actually worked. These films remind us of something important. Box office numbers don't always reflect value. Some movies fail because they're ahead of their time, some fail because of bad marketing, and some fail because Hollywood takes big swings that don't land the way they hoped. But each of these flops left a mark. They influenced filmmakers, inspired future genres, and gained fans long after leaving theaters. Sometimes failure isn't the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of a completely different legacy. So, yeah, Hollywood called them flops, but time had other plans. This is Cinema Glitch, where yesterday's mistakes are tomorrow's cult classics.